with us. My name is Jac Carnett. I am the host of this podcast, and we have been walking through the stories of Genesis, and we have arrived at Genesis 38 today. And so we usually go about 2 chapters at a time, and today's chapters are extremely interesting. It's going to be a great story today, and so we're going to get to see 2 sides of the sons of Joseph in this story that we've been talking about. And so, as always, we're following the lineage of Adam all the way down to Jesus. And so the Bible really slows down when it gets to Abraham, and then his son comes along, and his name is Isaac. Of course, he had many sons, but Isaac was the chosen son. And then we have Jacob, who is also referred to as Israel because God changed his name. And so Israel has 12 sons, and they become loosely. We count Joseph's two sons because one of them was cut out, and Levi's not technically a tribe, but to simplify it, those 12 sons become the 12 tribes. But that does not mean that those boys, by any stretch of the imagination, are perfect. In fact, they do a lot of stuff that, man, you and I would even be bashful about thinking about today, or would blush about thinking about today. And so today is going to be one of those days where we get to see kind of the darker side of these guys. But again, this theme going through all of these stories is that God is willing to honor their father's faithfulness in their lives. God is willing to honor the moments of mercy that they show far more than he is willing to give weight to their sins. Now, their sins still separate them in an eternal sense from the Father. So unless they're going to put their faith in the Father over the course of their lives, their sins do have an eternal significance. But it's kind of like their sins do not overshadow even the brief moments of faithfulness that they have in their lives. And so God is very much willing to honor those faithful moments. And so we're going to get to see Joseph's faithfulness and Judah, his brother's lack of faithfulness. And so we're going to dive into it today. Really, this podcast is to help you. If you have any questions about the Bible, we want to answer those. And so we're already starting to make little shorts that tell about, some more difficult questions that maybe Gen Z has about the Bible. And I was just reading articles, and there's some really positive stuff coming about Gen Z, about how my generation is turning back to religion and turning back to Christianity, and how my generation is drinking far less than in previous times or previous generations. Man, God is doing something. There is a revival that is not coming to my generation, but is here. And so, with that being said, if you are anywhere near Muskogee or Tulsa, Oklahoma, we would love to have you join us tonight, the day this comes out, for our final Young Adults Worship Night. If you're between the ages of about 18 to 30, we'd love to have you join us. And so, that being said, we're going to dive into the text today. And you can open up your Amplified Bible, you can open up your NIV Bible, or you can open up your Alabaster Bible, and those are awesome. And I think they have one for Exodus and Genesis as well, and they have different collections that put them all together, and hopefully someday they'll be a sponsor. But either way, I want to promote the Bible, and they're making really, really beautiful Bibles. And so we're going to dive into it today. So go ahead and open up your Bible to Genesis 38. Genesis has 50 chapters, so we're actually coming close to the end of this book, and once we go into Exodus, it'll be pretty much all about Moses for a long time. And Moses is a pivotal leader, just as his ancestors Israel were. And so, just to catch you up, we see that the 12 sons are extremely jealous. I should say the 11 sons, or 10 sons at this point. He has a favorite son, Jacob. Israel's favorite son is named Joseph. Remember, he gives him the coat of many colors, and the boys are so jealous of him that they basically decide, we're just going to kill him, and we're going to tell our father that, a wild animal ripped him apart. But in a moment of mercy, the oldest son, Reuben, says, let's not kill him. Let's throw him down a well. he was secretly going to come back and get him later, but they did throw him down the well. But before he could come back, Judah said, instead of killing him, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. So let's sell him to our cousins as a slave. They're on their way to Egypt. He'll be out of our hair for good. They do that. They take his coat of many colors, and then they dip it in animal's blood and kind of tear it up a little bit. And then they present it to their father, Jacob. And Jacob, of course, is heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken that Joseph is now out of the picture, and he thinks he's dead. And what's even crazier is that these brothers then try to console their father for their own lie. Like, it's one thing to tell someone a lie and then just move on. It's another thing entirely to tell them the lie and then try to be the one that consoles them when you've told them that lie. It's pretty sadistic on their part. And so it says in verse 35 that then all of his sons and daughters attempted to console him, but he refused to be comforted and said, I'll go to my grave mourning for my son. And his father wept for him. And so they just let this happen because they were so torn up by jealousy. And so it says, meanwhile in Egypt, the Midianites sold Joseph as a slave to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the royal guard. So Joseph is now off in Egypt. He's been sold down south, and he is out of the picture. But at home, the guilt is weighing on these brothers. More and more and more, they have to look at their father as he's so torn up with grief about the death of his son, just being ripped away from him. And it's even worse for them because they know not only could we end his suffering, but we would also have to tell him that we were the ones who authored his suffering, telling him that he was dead, when in fact he's just down in Egypt as a slave. So really bad situation. And even though Judah was the one who said, let's sell him off as a slave, my dad and I were talking about this. He just gets up and leaves. He's like, I can't handle the weight of this. I can't handle the weight on my conscience. So he gets up and leaves, and that's what chapter 38 is all about. It's like this side quest that we see one of the brothers go on that we don't really get to see about any of the other brothers, because after this chapter it jumps right back into Joseph and picks up right where verse 36 left off. And so it's almost as if the writers were putting all this together, and then they had the story of Judah and they just interjected it right here into the story. And so it says this in verse 1, chapter 38. Now at that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a certain Adulamite named Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of Shua, a Canaanite, and he took her as his wife and lived with her. So already things are bad, and they're now going from bad to worse, because one of the big things that Judah was not supposed to do was marry a Canaanite. So we have his wife, who is, I want to make sure I spelled Canaanite right. Canaanite. Canaanite. He took her, the daughter. There Judah saw Shua, a Canaanite. Saw a daughter of Shua, my mistake, a Canaanite. He took her as his wife. So her name is Hira. Sorry. I got this. Hira. So Judah and Hira are married. Now, he's supposed to only be marrying Israelites, but now he's married a Canaanite. So they're probably going to start to get into some pagan practices. They're going to start to getting into sexual idolatry and all of this stuff. And, it's not good being away from home like that, or at least away from your family's house, like the religion of your family's house. And so it says this. So she conceived and gave birth to a son, and Judah named him E-R. So we're going to go down the generations. So we have E-R, that's his name. Right there, right by my shoulder, if you can see it. Right there. Okay. Then she conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. O-N-A-N. Onan. So now we have two brothers. And she again conceived and gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. 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 It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Now Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. So now we have We'll put them down here a little bit. So now we have and Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him in judgment. Now we're not told what exactly he did. If he was following the practices of his mother, I mean, it could have been just about anything. And the Bible says, I will show grace to whom I show grace, and I will show mercy to whom I show mercy. And so we're all guilty of whatever was guilty of. But God has shown his grace to each and every person in this story. And sometimes God's patience runs out. In this case, it ran out with I don't know what he was guilty of. But is now dead. Firstborn son is out of the picture. Lord has killed him in judgment. And here we go. This is where it starts to get crazy. Then Judah told Onan, the second son, right here, go in to your brother's widow and perform your duty as a brother-in-law under the Levirate marriage custom. Be her husband and raise children for the name of your brother. Now, the law, so basically everything that happens in the Bible after this obviously has not been written yet. The law has not been given by Moses. And so this is really just customary for these people at this time. So if a brother dies, the younger brother would then marry the wife that was left behind, the widow, and then their name and their property and all their possessions would continue on because the men held the property. And so it could be passed to the brother, combined, and the name could live on. So that was the real purpose of this. And as it says, all the boys that would be, or boys and girls that would be born to these two now, Tamar and Onan, would bear the name of because he was the original husband. So Onan knew that the child heir would not be his, but his dead brother's, because they would take his name essentially. So whenever he lay with his brother's widow, he spilled his seed on the ground to prevent conception, so that he would not give a child to his brother. So now he's like skirting the requirements and the expectation of their custom, their family. This was all about preserving the family name and preserving the property and preserving what God had given them. But he doesn't want his sons to be known as, his brother's sons, even though they were his. And so he doesn't like that. And he spills his seed outside of her womb. And so if you don't know what that means, then you can find out when you're older. And so, but what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord. Therefore, he killed him also in judgment. So this is a big deal to the Lord as well, that, you are thinking of yourself first. This is an act of selfishness on his part. So God kills Onan now in judgment. So and Tamar are over. Onan and Tamar are over. Now Shelah is the only one that's left, this third son with Tamar. So it says this. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at your father's house until Shelah, my youngest son, is grown. So he may have been just a little bit younger, not ready to get married. And Judah is saying, hey, why don't you go home, go live with your father again as you did before you were married. When Shelah is old enough, you can marry him at that point. But he was deceiving her, for he thought that if Shelah should marry her, he too might die like his brothers did. So Tamar went and lived in his father's house. So Judah is saying this, but he's being deceptive in saying this because he actually doesn't want Shelah to marry Tamar at this point or ever, because he's like, listen, this woman apparently has got something on her, and if my firstborn son's dead and my secondborn son's dead, she's becoming the common denominator, and he's not willing to risk it with Shelah. And so he's saying this, but he's never intending to actually give her Shelah as a husband. So quite a while later, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. And when the time of mourning was ending, he went up to his sheep shears in Timnah with his friend Hira, the Adullamite, with his friend Hira the Adullamite. Hold on. I thought Hira was the name of the wife. This time Judah left his brothers and went down and stayed with a certain Adullamite named Hira. There Judah saw a daughter of Shua, a Canaanite, took her as his wife. Okay, change something really quick. Hira was not his wife's name. That was the friend's name. We actually don't know his wife's name. Either way, she's dead now. So she's out of the picture. And so Judah is going up to, where Hira is hanging out, and they're going to be shearing the sheep. This is a big festival that they would have. And I say festival, but it's like a big event. They're all getting together to shear these sheep. It takes a long time. Could be a number of days that they're there together. All the people are getting together. And so Judah's going up there as well. And it says this. Tamar was told, listen, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's clothes. She's probably wearing black at this point. And covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself up in disguise and sat at the gateway of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given to him as a wife, as Judah promised. So let's imagine this for a second. We're going to erase all of this. So you have Tamar over here. Tamar, she's at her father's house, okay? Then you have Timnah up in the north. I'm going to erase that, come down a little bit. So you have Timnah up in the north, this area. And now Judah, wherever he is, so let's say Judah is over here. Judah is going up to Timnah, okay? And so Tamar is going to intercept him right here at a city called, I just said it, Enaim. Enaim. E-N-A-I-M. Enaim. So she's going to meet him right there. She has now disguised herself. And at this point, Shelah is supposed to be married to Tamar. Shelah is old enough, but Judah has not done anything about it. So, hasn't happened yet. But Tamar knows this. So she says this. Or it says this. When Judah saw her, he thought that she was a temple prostitute, for she had covered her face as such women did. Now, he shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have done this. His wife was gone at this point. So it is idolatry, or I'm sorry, it is adultery, but he still shouldn't have done this. And so, okay. I don't really know what else to say about that. It's still wrong, but she was gone. I mean, even if she was just, at this point, he has no idea who she is. At this point, she's just a random temple prostitute. His life has been pretty bitter. He had to leave town because the guilt that he was lying to his father was too much. The Lord has blessed him apparently with sheep and sons and a wife and everything, but it was the wrong wife. He shouldn't have married her. But she dies anyway, and so does his firstborn son and then his secondborn son. And so just kind of put yourself in the headspace where Judah's at. He sees this temple prostitute, and I guess he thinks, what the heck? I guess so. He turned to her by the road and said, please come let me lie with you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you may lie with me? So what are you going to pay me? He answered, I will send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, what will give me as a pledge, as a deposit until you send it? So obviously he's not holding a little goat at this point. So she's like, all right, well then what's your collateral? What's your down payment? He said, what pledge shall I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord, the staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and was intimate with her, and she conceived by him. So now the other two boys weren't able to get their wife pregnant, but now Judah has laid with Tamar, his own daughter-in-law, and now she's pregnant. So now she's going to have a son with Judah. Crazy. And so she's still holding his staff. It's kind of like her holding his ID. He would have known for certain that was his staff. No one else would have had a staff like his. I mean, you carry it all day long, every day. You've got your own cords hanging off of it. He knows this is his. This is collateral, okay? So then she got up and left and removed her veil and put on her widow's clothing. So also think about how impersonal this is. This is messed up on multiple levels. Not only is she family, but he doesn't even know that. And he's sleeping with what he thinks is just a temple prostitute, which is because he left the culture that he was supposed to be in. He's now living in a pagan Canaanite culture where that's just okay. I mean, it wasn't okay for the Jews either, but they still did it all the time. And so, but then also apparently he never finds out. He never finds out that it was her at this point. And we know that because he didn't freak out at this moment, which meant, if they're physical together, he never even saw her face or really even heard her voice. So this is like the absolute opposite of what intimacy between a man and a woman is supposed to be. It's incredibly impersonal. It's a transaction at this point. It's what makes, it's what makes all of these digital sites that what I'm talking about so disgusting, because it takes something that's meant to be sacred and it just makes it transactional and impersonal and with a lack of intimacy, and just kind of ruins the whole thing. So he never even sees her face. He probably doesn't even hear her voice all that much, because if she's your daughter-in-law, you would have known the sound of your daughter-in-law's voice. But man, the whole thing is just messed up from start to finish. And so Judah leaves. He heads on up to Timnah now. So he leaves her. He goes on up to Timnah. And she got up and left and removed her veil and put on her widow's clothing. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to get his pledge back from the woman, he was unable to find her. So now we have the friend Hira. Hira goes down to Enaim with the goat, and she's not there. Obviously, she's not there. Judah's doing, this is the only good thing he's done so far. He's trying to do right by her and at least pay her, whatever. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to get his pledge back from the woman, he was unable to find her. So it could have been he didn't even want to pay her. He just wanted his staff back. Again, the whole thing is messed up. He asked the men in the place, "Where's the temple prostitute who was by the roadside at Enaim?" And they were like, "There's no prostitute there." Obviously, she's probably only there for a day or two. She's not known to the area. She was doing this to sleep with Judah. So he returned to Judah and said, "I cannot find her." And also the local men said, "There's no prostitute here." Then Judah said, "Let her keep the things, the staff, the pledge articles for herself. Otherwise, we're going to be a laughingstock searching everywhere for her. After all, I sent this young goat, but you did not find her." So he's like, "Listen, just let it go, okay? Because if we keep running around wondering, asking where this temple prostitute is, it's bad enough that it happens. I don't need the whole area knowing that I slept with a temple prostitute. So if she's gone, whatever. Just let her keep the staff, okay? And we'll keep the goat." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the role of a prostitute." Now, the translation for prostitute here, he may not have been told that, she was actually acting like a prostitute. She's pimping herself out, which is, that is what she did technically. But more of that, he was just told, your daughter-in-law has committed an adulterous act, and now she's pregnant. And so that's just part of it as well. So she is with child because of her immorality. So Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned to death." Which is a crazy, crazy double standard that Tamar, who's acted poorly, is going to be punished and killed at this point. But Judah, obviously guilty of the exact same thing, is not only not going to be punished, but is the one doing the punishing. So the whole situation is screwed up at this point. Whole situation's crazy. And so, I don't know. I was telling one of my interns about this week, that this is a horrible situation. And unfortunately in our society today, it's been completely flipped on its head. And feminism has driven this to such a degree where at that time, she's getting punished for committing the exact same act that he committed, but he's not being punished. He actually gets to do the punishing. But today, it's the exact opposite, where Okay. I don't know if you have kids watching this, but I'm going to explain this very straight to the point where um, basically with iPhones now, if you don't know, you can sign up for OnlyFans and you can become a porn star yourself, and you can make money from it. 99.999% of these women make no money. It's a huge, horrific downward spiral for these girls, and my heart breaks for any of them that are caught up in it. But they think that they're like going to be making money because there's 15 of them that actually do make money, and they have to do really horrible things just to make money, and it keeps getting worse and worse. Either way, feminism has driven this to such a point where if a guy said, hey, sorry, I was kind of busy yesterday, I was on OnlyFans all day long, you'd be like, oh my gosh, dude, don't tell me that. Like, bro, do not tell people that. That's disgusting. Dude, get a life. And obviously, that's right. It is disgusting. That person should get a life. And I pray to God that's, obviously you can pray and ask the Lord, man, would you free me of this sexual sin? Would you free me of this grip that's, this site has on me? But the flip side is, if a woman said, sorry, I was busy yesterday, I was filming OnlyFans, the reaction wouldn't be, wow, that's disgusting. From a lot of people, the reaction would be, yeah, good for you. Making money, you're your own boss, get out there. Yeah, you don't have to leave your house, it's super easy. Just make money from your iPhone. Where, the man is now being punished for doing the exact same thing that the woman is doing. The woman's being praised for doing something immoral, and the man's being, dragged through the mud for doing the immoral thing. Either way, it's bad, but it's been flipped on its head to such a degree where the pendulum has swung completely to the opposite side, and it's just as messed up today as it was then. And so all that's to say, these people are not perfect. You and I are not perfect, but the Lord is honoring the faithfulness for the sake of your father Abraham. I will bless you. And his blessings go down through generations to generations. And even if we're not good on our word, God is good on his word. So, huge double standard, then and now. So while she was being brought out, she took the things that Judah had given her and sent them along with a message to her father-in-law saying, I am with child by the man to whom these articles belong. And she added, please examine them carefully and see clearly to whom these things belong. And this is the seal and the cord and the staff. So she's sliding a little message under the table saying I slept with the man who owns these. I'm not going to say your name, but you and I both know who these belong to. And so she slides under the table. He sees it, obviously. Judah recognizes the articles in verse 26. And he said, she has been more righteous in this matter than I, because I did not give her my son Shelah as I had promised. And Judah did not have intimate relations with her again. So obviously she is not killed at this point. Judah still doesn't end up giving Shelah as her husband, but Judah realizes the error of his ways. Hopefully he sees the error of all of his ways, how screwed up the whole situation is. It's an incredible embarrassment that now apparently the whole world knows about. And it says this, the story just ends for the two of them there. So she is not killed. The child is not killed, obviously, either. And so things just move forward. And it says, now when the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one baby put out his hand, and the midwife took his hand and tied a scarlet thread on it, saying, this one was born first. But he pulled back his hand and his brother was born first. And she said, what a breach you have made for yourself to be the firstborn. So she named him Perez, which means breach or break forth, because they thought the brother was going to come out first. But this one came out first. Afterward, his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, was born and was named Zerah, brightness. And the craziest thing about all of this, I'll show you. So in the line of Jesus, the most important man to ever live, we have Abraham, who messed up on a lot of things himself. We have Isaac. We have Jacob. who becomes Israel. All the way down here, we have Jesus. Now, you would think that the next one in line, because he was righteous, would be Joseph. But in fact, it wasn't Joseph. The line that Jesus came through was Judah and the incestuous relationship that he had with Tamar, and then Perez. And then there's several generations that go through there. And so God is able to take even the worst of humanity, and when it's given over to him, when God actually has his way, he's able to bring about the best thing that's ever happened to humanity, and that's Jesus. And so the Bible's not a pretty story about how great God's people are. In fact, more often than not, the Bible is a story about how bad God's people are and how faithful God is to them regardless. And so, right in the middle of Joseph's story, he's been sold off to Egypt. We see this horrific family situation that happens with Judah before he comes back home. And all this is happening while Joseph is living in Egypt and having his own adventures, which we'll start now. So in chapter 39, we have Joseph. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, so we'll go ahead and write his name up here. He's a pretty big deal. And Potiphar, an Egyptian officer of Pharaoh, so he's probably maybe part of the army, something of that sort, okay? The captain of the royal guard bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph even though he was a slave, and became the successful and prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. So Joseph is now under Potiphar, but even in that situation, because God loves Joseph, because God loves his family, because Joseph also is faithful, it's hard to see that over there. Because Joseph is faithful, God blesses him over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So, remain faithful. And it says this: the Lord was with Joseph, even though he was a slave, he became a successful and prosperous man who was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord caused all that he did to prosper and succeed in his hands. So when God blesses us, it's not just like our family gets to see it or our church gets to see it, man. If we're truly faithful to the Lord loves us so much that even the people around us who do not serve God will recognize there's something different about this person. And here's how Potiphar responded. So Joseph pleased Potiphar and found favor in his sight, and he served him as his personal servant. He made Joseph the overseer over his house and put all that he owned in Joseph's charge. And so this happened with Laban before. This is happening with Potiphar now, where the blessing of God is so great and the faithfulness of God is so great that even unbelieving people are now giving their things to them just to see God bless it on behalf of Joseph's faithfulness or Abraham's faithfulness. And so what will God not do for those that love him? So it says this, verse 5, it happened that from the time that he made Joseph overseer in his house, put him in charge over all that he owned, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. So the Lord's blessing was on everything that Potiphar owned in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left all that he owned in Joseph's charge, and with Joseph there, he did not even need to pay attention to anything except the food that he ate. So Joseph is over this incredibly important house, and God is blessing him to such a degree, and Joseph is so honorable and such a good and honest man that Potiphar trusts him so much that he doesn't even have to worry about a single thing in his house except what he wants to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's pretty great. Now, Joseph was handsome and attractive in form and appearance. Your host knows something about that, so I'm just kidding. Then after a time, his master's wife, I do not have this same experience. It starts and ends with that verse. So his master's wife looked at Joseph with desire, and she said, "Lie with me." So there's a lot of that going on in these 2 chapters, okay? But he refused because he's a good guy. He refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, with me in the house, my master does not concern himself with anything. He has put everything that he owns in my charge. He is not greater in this house, this house than I am, nor has he kept anything from me except for you, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great and evil sin against God and your husband?" So he's like, I'm a slave here. Truly, I'm a slave. But I have like the exact same authority as your husband. There's nothing that he has kept from me except for you, because you are his wife. How could I sin against him? And it was so that she spoke to him, Joseph, persistently day after day, but he did not listen to her plea to lie beside her or be with her. Then it happened one day, Joseph went out into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the men of the household was there inside the house. She, being the master's wife, caught Joseph by his outer robe and said, "Lie with me." But he left his robe in her hand and ran and got outside the house. This is a brilliant thing to teach with. It's, man, we do not just resist, sexual perversion. We do not just run. We do not just walk away from this. We flee. We run away from sexual immorality because, it is a cancer in your life when it grabs onto you, and it's so hard to kill. And thankfully, Jesus is greater than it, but we're supposed to run from it, and Joseph does exactly that. When she saw that he had left his robe in her hand and run outside, she called to the men of the house and household and said to them, "Look at this. Your master has brought a Hebrew," a little bit of racism there, "a Hebrew into the household to mock and insult us. He came in to lie with me, and I screamed." So now, I taught this in my youth on Wednesday with the story of Stephen. That if the world cannot get you to compromise your values, the world cannot get you to speak against Jesus or against religion, it'll just result to lying about you. They did the same to Stephen. They did the same to Jesus. They did the same to Joseph. The truth always comes out, but it's happening to Joseph right now. When he heard me screaming, he left his robe with me and ran outside the house. So she left Joseph's outer robe beside her until his master came home, so until Potiphar got there. Then she told her husband the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant to whom you bought among us came to me to mock and insult me. Then as soon as I raised my voice and screamed, he left his robe with me and ran outside the house." So now she lies to her husband, and she's going to get away with it. And when Joseph's master heard the words of his wife, saying, "This is the way your servant has treated me," his anger burned, rightfully so. So Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. And so this is not meant to be a place where you stay forever. It's not like today where, you can get a life sentence. This was meant to be like a work camp, or this was meant to be, something temporary. But Joseph ends up staying there for quite a while. And it says this: "But the Lord was with Joseph and extended his loving kindness to him and gave him favor in the sight of the warden." So in his father's house, Joseph does well because he's an honest man. He is then sold as a slave. It's not his fault. Things happen. But God is still with him. God is still faithful, and he's still honest. And so he does well. In Potiphar's house, again, life happens. He is lied about, and he's sent now to prison. And so his life has just gone down and down and down and down and down all this time. But God is still faithful to him, where every single place that he gets, God is taking him higher and higher and higher. So now he's in prison, and he's doing well even in prison with the warden, because he's still an honest man. The warden committed to Joseph's care and management all the prisoners who were in the prison. So whatever was done there, he was in charge of it. The warden paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's care, because the Lord was with him. Whatever Joseph did, the Lord made to prosper. And so this should be a lesson to us all that, the things that happen in life may not be our fault. But it's no excuse to let that affect our character. And so Joseph is able to hold on to his character despite being cast out by his brothers, despite being lied about by his master's wife, despite being thrown into a prison in a foreign country. He still manages to hold on to his character and his honesty, and the Lord's going to reward him tremendously for that. And he is now, even as he's in prison, he's doing well. And so a lot happens in these stories. So much happens, and we sometimes can get the idea that the Bible is supposed to be all roses and good sayings and nice things, but truly a majority of the Bible is horrible stories of people making horrible mistakes, and yet God being faithful to them throughout it all. Because even when we're unfaithful, even when we sin, God is still perfect. And so his loving kindness, as we've learned in the past, his chesed is going with them wherever they go. And if you have Jesus, then his loving kindness, the same that was on Joseph, can go with you wherever you go. And so we're going to be following the story of Joseph into he starts interpreting dreams for people in the prison and then for Pharaoh, and it escalates from here. And so we're excited to have you with us. We will see you next Monday on the Amplified Podcast.